Welcome to Kingdom Builder TV. I am your host, Jay Heilman. Thank you so much for coming by today. I'm really excited about my guest today because many people may have heard of her husband, but she's here to talk about something that's amazing that we need to check out. And I'm excited to have her. She's a former 2017 winner of both Miss South Africa and Miss Universe. And I'm excited to welcome Demi-Leigh Tebow to the program today. Demi-Leigh, how are you doing today?
Hey Jay, I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. A little birdie told me you might not be, but your wife sure is a Gators fan, so
She sure
I love
is.
it. Good choice.
Yeah, not everybody can be perfect. Well, I'm excited because I just got done reading a book. Actually, this is one of the few books that I have co-read with my wife, but you have a new book out today. It's called A Crown That Lasts, and a lot of people watching are probably wondering, okay, what's this book about? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, Jay, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited. I finally get to join my husband in the author club, so I have a little bit of catching up to do.
Mhm.
Jay, this book is I really hope that the readers walk away feeling like they are able to go and instill a lasting confidence in their lives, like they are able to have found maybe their life's purpose, and that they are able to go and take true claim of their God-given identity. A crown that lasts is not all the answers. I definitely don't have it all figured out, but it is my roadmap to how I have navigated some really hard situations in my life and some really joyful situations in my life.
Yeah, and I noticed, like I said, my wife and I had sat and read this book together, and she especially thought that the opening story was very funny. But however, at the time, uh, it was publicly humiliating. And the question would be is, was it difficult to, relive and describe these real life experiences to readers in the book?
Yeah, the opening story is one of my favorites. I loved writing it. I'm excited for my readers to get to read it as well. It starts off with me pretty much on the floor repacking 6 suitcases in the Bangkok airport after handing over my crown as Miss Universe. And you'll have to go and read to see what actually happens there, but it was pretty funny. But looking back, it definitely was some of my chapters that I wrote, especially the chapter about my sister, the chapter about my carjacking story, um, was was very therapeutic in a big way. I don't think I fully realized, if you had to ask me what really surprised me about writing a book for the first time, how much I learned from actually writing out these stories on paper or maybe on my MacBook was a little bit of a surprise, and some of them were really hard to relive. And I think some of them I had to stop and pause and really understand what the message is that the Lord wants me to share in these chapters.
Yeah, and I know that sometimes some people like when they go through, traumatic things and they go through, those lows in life, a lot of people don't want to talk about it. They kind of want to keep it in. But, for me personally, I'm like you. I find it kind of therapeutic to be able to talk publicly about this, really hoping that what I have to say, can encourage other people. And I think that this book has a great way of being able to do that, especially for young women who are like, figuring out, okay, who am I? Like, what is my identity? And I know that that can be difficult, especially for women, trying to figure out who they are and not having to be somebody that somebody else says they have to be.
Yeah, that's so true, Jay. My book is very centered on identity. The subtitle is literally called "You Are Not Your Label," right? And when you think of the word identity, it really just means who we are as a person.
Mhm.
And who we are as a person was formed and maybe molded by a lot of our life circumstances in a big way, by a lot of the things that have influenced our lives, whether that be relationships, jobs, careers, titles, maybe a new car, whatever that is. Those things have influenced and essentially molded who we are as a person. But the problem, Jay, comes, and the problem that I faced personally was when we root our identity in our life circumstances, we are going to face a roller coaster of insecurity, of questioning, of not getting all the answers, of having a low self-esteem a lot of times. And that was really something that I faced. And what I had to learn is, in order to truly root my identity and have a lasting confidence, I need to root my identity in something that is one, bigger than myself, that two is fixed, that three is never changing, and that four is always trustworthy. And unfortunately, my life circumstances are none of those things. If anything, they are a roller coaster. And what I personally have had to go and find, what is that one thing that is bigger than myself, that is always fixed, always trustworthy, never changing. That has been my faith. And so I would just ask your listeners, and maybe challenge you, what are the things that you are rooting your identity in, that is always trustworthy, never changing, always fixed, and bigger than yourself?
Exactly. And that goes to, the topic of your husband. You're married to Tim Tebow, and back then you were on the top of the world in the field of modeling, winning Miss Universe. And I might add, you were the second woman from South Africa to win that award, and it was about 40 years prior that the last woman had won that in 1978. But being married to Tim, a Heisman Trophy winning athlete, who with his time in football was a very polarizing figure. A lot of people, like, when he was the quote unquote the most eligible bachelor, back when they were like, okay, is Tim ever going to get married, kind of thing. When you guys got married, I know that he's super supportive of you, but many may wonder, like, was there any kind of competition with that? Like, how did he put your mind at ease when it came to supporting the things that you wanted to do and not just being Miss Tim Tebow?
Well, Jay, you might find a little bit of laughter in the story, especially since your wife is a big Gator fan. But growing up in South Africa and moving to the United States just about 7 years ago, I have never seen a football or a baseball game in my entire life until I moved to the United States. So that also meant that I had never heard the name Tim Tebow before. So that was pretty funny. But in my book, I actually write the whole story of how we met and how we got together. And it's actually a really beautiful, very sweet story. My little sister that was born with severe special needs and disabilities was our matchmaker, and she was the reason that we met each other. Tim is the founder of the Tim Tebow Foundation, and one of the initiatives that they have is supporting people with disabilities and special needs all over the world. And one of the ways that they do that is through a worldwide celebration for people with special needs and disabilities, and it's called Night to Shine. And like I said, it's all over the world, and it's also hosted in my home country, South Africa. So when I met Tim for the first time, I really just knew him as the Night to Shine guy. And that really was what brought us together. We didn't necessarily have a ton in common. Like I said, I didn't watch football. I knew nothing about baseball or any other American sports, and he certainly didn't know a lot about pageants. I can guarantee you that. But the thing that really brought us together was what we had in purpose. And today, I'm so grateful that in my life partner, we get to do two things that have brought us together, and that is to love God and to serve people. And we get to do that every single day as a partnership in our marriage.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And I got a chance to meet Tim back in 2011 at the Dove Awards, and it was kind of funny. We actually met in a staircase
Okay.
on the Dove, and I got a chance to talk to him for 15 minutes and take a picture with him and stuff. But a lot of people ask me, like, you see somebody on TV, you see somebody in interviews and stuff. How are they in real life? And I said, Tim is just as real in person when the cameras aren't on him
Mhm.
than he is behind the scenes. And that's very reassuring to people when they hear that about somebody like that. So he was so nice, and I love being able to talk with him. And the one cool thing I did mention to him is the Night to Shine thing. I have a child. My 15-year-old son Aiden has autism, so I've had to deal with the special needs challenges his whole life. And I got a chance to tell Tim, I said, I really appreciate what you do with just your organizations, because that's amazing. I mean, you're giving these kids a chance that they may not have had, and I think that is amazing. And the both of you do a lot of great humanitarian work, especially for the special needs kids, as well as the kids that are most vulnerable, the ones that are trapped in human trafficking and stuff. And it's a shame that this still even goes on in today's world. But what is y'all's inspiration in getting involved to help fight with these fellow human beings?
Yeah. Jay, I think mine and Tim's stories are different in the way that we have been called to fight for some of the most vulnerable people in this world. And it's another thing of how our purpose was aligned long before we ever even met. Tim has his own story. My story started when I was carjacked and held at gunpoint by multiple armed men in my home country, South Africa, in the year 2017. And Jay, back then, I could genuinely not have told you that I knew that human trafficking was actually a thing. I always felt like it was something that happened in some other country, far away, not here,
Mm.
not in my backyard, but that is not the reality when we know that an estimated 50 million people are trapped in human trafficking right now as we speak. And it's not just in some other countries far away. Um, so I never want to victimize myself. I don't know what my perpetrators goal was. I just knew that it wasn't good. I write all about that story and that incident in my book, but I'm thankful that I got to get away from that situation that was awful and was a very traumatic experience. However, that incident truly served as a catalyst to me learning about the women in this world, the children in this world, and even the men in this world that did not get to get away, that
Mhm.
are still trapped in this evil, one of the greatest evils I believe we face in this day and age of human trafficking. And Jay, I got away and I ran up a very big avenue, knocking on car window after car window, begging people to help me, looking over my shoulder, not knowing if I'm being shot in the back. And nobody would stop to help me until this young girl, she's 19 years old, pulled over, let me into her car, and took me to safety. And as I healed from that process, from that incident, and as I just went through that healing process, I realized that I never want to be one of the cars that turned a blind eye, that pretended not to hear or to see, but that I want to be that one young woman that stopped, that was willing to be interruptible to help somebody in need.
Yeah, and that's a lot of people don't even know that this is going on. I know that a film came out last year called The Sound of Freedom, starring Jim Caviezel, and that movie really opened people's eyes to realize that, hey, this maybe 2023, 2024, but this stuff is still going on. And something else that I like that you've done, I know Tim does a lot of speaking events and stuff with the Tim Tebow Foundation, but you had done something called the Unbreakable campaign, and my wife was looking at that, and she's like, I'm curious, is the Unbreakable Conference, is that something that you're going to do again? Is that something that you guys are planning on doing in the future?
I would love that. Unbreakable was started and founded shortly after my carjack incident. After that incident, I had so many young girls and moms and women reaching out to me, asking me how I got to get away from that situation. And I'm thankful that I was able to complete so many different self-defense courses, safety driving courses that my dad forced me to go on as a teenager, and before I was ever even able to drive my own vehicle. And like I said, I know how handy those physical tools, well, practical tools and skills that was implemented in my life way before that incident ever happened, came in. And I wanted to be able to go around my home country and share that knowledge, those tools, those skills with as many women as I could. And I partnered with field experts to bring that to as many women as I could in my home country. And since winning Miss Universe, Unbreakable has been able to travel to a few countries actually, and we had our last conference last year in October in Jacksonville, Florida. That was so great and so fun. And I hope to have another Unbreakable conference in the future.
Awesome. And so this is your first book. You said you have some catching up to do with Tim.
That's right.
My wife has his books too.
That.
But Tim also did some children's books based on the dog Bronco.
Yeah.
And many may be curious, now that you've written this book, There's two other dogs in the picture. Is maybe a children's book in the future that includes all three dogs that you'd like to do?
I mean, maybe we would never know. So, yes, we do have three dogs, Paris, Chunk, and Kobe. Paris, our Dalmatian, was actually born deaf, and her hearing has developed as she got a little bit older, and her spots started developing. There's a correlation between the whites and the melanin and the hearing in the ears. So, I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe there's something special coming with the Tebow pack at some point in the future.
Well, that would be amazing. Well, Demi-Leigh, in closing, going back to A Crown That Lasts, after reading it, I know that sharing the story has been paramount to you. And so, in closing, when women, young and old, read this book, I know a lot of them may be able to relate to some of the things that you're saying in here. So, what is the ultimate takeaway that you want them to take away from it? And what do you want to say to them personally the most when they read this book?
Jay, I truly hope, that every reader gets to read this book, read A Crown That Lasts, and know that they are not the label that this world puts on them, but that they are able to go and claim their true God-given identity, that they are able to walk in the purpose that He has destined for their life with lasting confidence.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it. And I'm praying that the Lord can do big things with this book and just continue working in everything that you and your husband Tim are working in. God bless you guys. And thank you so much for all the work, amazing work that you do.
Thank you so much, Jay. And we need to get your son tonight to shine. They're in every state all over the US. So let us know if you ever need help getting him